Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. Hi. My name is Lena, I'm 33, and if you're listening to this, it means I've finally admitted what I've been denying to myself for months now. I ruined everything. I cheated on my husband, Nathan, in the bed we once called ours. And now, he walks past me like I'm air. He doesn't yell. He doesn't cry. He doesn't ask why. He just stopped seeing me. And maybe that silence? That nothingness? It's worse than any punishment I imagined. But if you think this story is simple, if you think I'm just a villain in a marriage, I'm asking you to listen a little longer. Because I didn't do it to hurt him. I didn't do it to escape. I did it because somewhere along the way, I forgot how to feel anything. Nathan and I met in the most predictable way, through mutual friends at a ski cabin in Colorado. I hated the cold, but he brought warmth into my life that I didn't know I needed. He was funny in a quiet, steady way. He wasn't the kind of man who made grand declarations, but when he touched me, my wrist, my lower back, my cheek, I felt chosen. Desired. And for the first 5 years, our marriage felt like home. Lazy Sunday mornings tangled in sheets. Inside jokes whispered at dinner parties. His hand resting on my thigh under the table when he knew I was anxious. We had this rhythm, this intimate, unspoken language that made me think, this is it. This is forever. But forever has a way of stretching thin when life piles on. I opened a small event planning business. It started with weddings and balloon arches and late-night emails, and slowly bled into every corner of my life. Nathan was supportive, in the way that meant he didn't complain. He didn't interfere. But he also didn't ask questions. He stopped noticing when I got home at 1 a.m. He stopped reaching for me under the covers. He'd kiss me goodnight, soft, habitual, but it was more like closing a book than opening a door. It wasn't just the sex. It was the slow leak of attention. Of presence. I'd sit across from him on the couch, watching him scroll on his phone while I tried to share something that mattered. He'd hum. Cool. I'd try to spoon him in bed, and his body would shift, just enough to make room for space. You think I'm blaming him? I'm not. I know what I did. But I need you to understand what it felt like to disappear while still being looked at. What it's like to cry silently in the bathroom so your husband doesn't have to deal with your sadness. The man I slept with, he wasn't some stranger. He was someone I worked with, a client, technically. He wasn't even charming, not really. But he listened. He looked at me like I was real again. He noticed when I changed my hair, when I got tired. And one night, I stayed too late at the venue. I had wine. I was exhausted. I didn't plan it. I didn't want it. But I didn't stop it either. The next morning, I came home early. Nathan was asleep. I crawled into bed, pulled the comforter over me, and looked at the ceiling like it could offer me mercy. I told myself I would never do it again. But a month later, Nathan found out. I don't even know how. He didn't say. Didn't confront me. I just came home one day and found the sheets changed, my favorite mug gone from the kitchen, his phone no longer on the nightstand. He still lived there. He still existed. But he wouldn't touch me. Wouldn't see me. The silence is killing me. But the moment I knew something had changed, not just in our marriage, but in me, was about 2 months before it all broke. I remember laying my head on Nathan's shoulder after a long day. I whispered, "I missed you today." And he paused, then said, "I guess we've both been busy." That was it. No kiss. No, "I missed you too." Just distance. Invisible and vast. That was the moment I realized, I was still in the marriage, but I was completely alone. And the worst part? I didn't even know how to fix it. Nathan's a firefighter. I used to love telling people that, not for the fantasy of it, but because it made him sound like a hero. And in some ways, he was. Brave, dependable, grounded. But what people never tell you is that when a man spends his life running into burning buildings, sometimes he forgets how to sit with quiet things. Like emotions. Like grief. Like a wife slowly fading beside him. He's always been the type to solve things with his hands, patch a leak, fix the garage door, kiss my neck when he sensed I was sad. He thought love was doing. And I used to think that was enough. But there's a difference between being held and being understood. I remember one evening, maybe 6 months before everything unraveled. It had been one of those long, rainy Tuesdays. My client had pushed back a launch, I was over-caffeinated and underfed, and my body just hurt. All I wanted was for Nathan to see me. Not fix me. Just see me. I walked into the kitchen, dropped my bag on the floor, and let out this half sigh, half growl. He was sautéing something, chicken, I think, and he looked up, gave me that soft smile, then wiped his hands on a dish towel and kissed my forehead. "Dinner's almost done," he said, his lips brushing mine. "You okay?" I shrugged. "I don't know. I feel off." He pulled me in, wrapped his arms around my waist. "Let me take care of you tonight," he murmured, lips grazing my ear. "After dinner, bath, wine, and then I'll make you forget everything." There was a time when those words would have melted me. But in that moment, I stiffened. Because I didn't want sex. I didn't want distraction. I wanted him to ask why I felt off. I wanted him to sit on the couch with me, legs tangled, and say, "Tell me what's on your heart." Instead, he pulled me tighter, mistaking my silence for arousal, and kissed the side of my neck. I felt my whole body retreat, even as I stayed pressed against him. "I just need a minute," I whispered, stepping back. His brow furrowed. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," I said too quickly. "I'm just tired." We sat at the dinner table in near silence. He talked about a minor fire at a strip mall, how one of the rookies panicked, how he had to take charge again. I nodded, chewed, offered half-hearted mm-ms. He didn't ask about my day. Later that night, when he reached for me in bed, I let him. Not because I wanted to, but because saying no felt like creating another problem I didn't have the energy to explain. And when he whispered, "I love you," against my collarbone, I swallowed the lump in my throat and whispered it back. That was the beginning of the misunderstanding, the slow, painful gap between how he loved and how I needed to be loved. Nathan thought affection fixed everything. That if he kissed me enough, touched me enough, made love to me enough, I'd come back to him. But I was craving conversation. Emotional presence. The kind of intimacy that says, "I know you're not okay, and I'm not scared of your mess." Sometimes, I'd try to explain it. We were at a friend's barbecue once, and I mentioned in passing that I missed our late-night talks. "You mean before we both got too busy and started falling asleep at 9? He joked, sipping his beer. "No," I said, softly. "I mean before we stopped sharing us." He laughed, but it was tight. "Babe, I talk to you more than anyone." But that wasn't true. He spoke around me. Not with me. So I stopped trying. I started journaling instead. Started staying later at work, lingering in the quiet after everyone left. And then, that man, my client, he started noticing the things Nathan no longer did. And I hate that it mattered. But it did. I wasn't proud of what followed. But if you're asking how it happened, it didn't start with lust. It started with loneliness. It started with a kiss on the forehead that felt like being told to smile when you're breaking inside. And the more Nathan tried to love me physically, the more invisible I felt. Like a house you walk into every day, but stopped noticing the cracks in the walls. It was a Saturday morning when it all felt like too much, and too little, at the same time. I was standing at the sink, in an old t-shirt and underwear, rinsing coffee mugs from the night before. Nathan came up behind me, shirtless, smelling like sleep and soap. His hands slid around my waist, warm and familiar. His mouth brushed the back of my neck, right below my hairline, a spot that used to make me shiver in all the right ways. Now, I just tensed. "Morning," he said, voice still groggy. "You look good like this." I forced a small smile, but my stomach had already knotted. He kissed my shoulder. "Want to go back to bed for a little?" I shook my head, eyes fixed on the suds in the sink. "I've got a million things to do today." He didn't move. His hands traveled lower, lightly squeezing my hips. I felt my body flinch, not violently, not enough to be obvious. But enough for me to feel it, and enough for him to notice. His hands froze. He let out a short breath and stepped back. "Lena, come on. What's going on with us?" I turned off the water. "Nothing's going on." "Exactly. That's the problem." His voice was tight. "You barely look at me anymore. Every time I touch you, you pull away like I'm a stranger." I turned around, drying my hands on a towel, avoiding his eyes. "I'm tired," I said flatly. "I'm stressed. Work is non-stop. You know that." He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "You're always tired when I touch you. But you have energy for everything else." That landed like a slap. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" he snapped, then softened. "I miss you, Lena. And I don't know how to reach you anymore." I wanted to scream, then stop trying to reach me through my body. But instead, I just stood there, arms limp at my sides. He stepped closer again. Slowly this time, like approaching a frightened animal. He brushed my cheek with his thumb. "You used to light up when I touched you." I swallowed hard. "I don't know what happened," I whispered. "But I did." We stopped talking. We stopped connecting in the spaces that weren't physical. Now, every caress felt like pressure. Every kiss felt like a request I hadn't made. Later that night, he tried again. We were on the couch. A movie was playing, forgotten in the background. He reached over, tucked my legs onto his lap, started tracing circles on the inside of my thigh. His touch was gentle, affectionate even, but my chest tightened. My brain spiraled. Is this supposed to be foreplay? Am I supposed to respond? If I don't, will he pull away again? If I do, will it feel fake? He leaned over and kissed me, slow, searching. And I kissed him back. For a moment. But there was nothing behind it. No spark. No pull. Just duty. And silence. I pulled away and stood up abruptly. "I'm going to bed," I muttered, not looking at him. Nathan sat frozen on the couch. He didn't follow. I climbed into our bed alone. Stared at the ceiling. Tried to cry, but nothing came. I used to want him with every part of me. Now, even when I tried, I couldn't feel wanted. I only felt obligated. And lying there, in the space we once filled with laughter and moans and whispered I love yous, one thought echoed so loudly it scared me. Why does everything have to turn into sex? We were at dinner. Some new Italian place Nathan had made a reservation at, one of those dimly lit, overpriced spots where the pasta is spelled with too many vowels and the waiters are trained to whisper. He was trying. I could tell. He wore the cologne I liked, even though he rarely used it outside weddings. He complimented my dress. He reached for my hand across the table like he used to. And I tried to be present. I tried to smile. But everything in me was coiled tight, like a spring ready to snap. We hadn't spoken much in the car on the way there. Just surface things, how my assistant messed up an RSVP list, how the fire station got new equipment. And when the wine came, he raised his glass and said, "To new beginnings." That should have made me hopeful. But I felt sick. We ate in silence for a while. Then he said, "You know, I've been thinking we should do a weekend away. Just us. Somewhere quiet. Cabin, maybe? Like we used to." I nodded, stabbing my ravioli. "Sure." He smiled, encouraged. "I think it would help. Get us out of our heads a little. Reconnect." I swallowed, hard. Right. Because sex in the woods will magically fix all this. His smile faltered. "That's not what I meant." I could hear the sharpness in my voice, but I couldn't stop. "Isn't it? Every time things feel off, your solution is some physical band-aid. A kiss, a weekend away, a bottle of wine. You never actually want to talk about what's wrong." He blinked, caught off guard. "Where is this coming from?" I laughed, dry and small. "Where do you think?" People were starting to glance over. I didn't care. "You think I don't notice?" I said, my voice low but shaking. "You only reach for me when you feel me pulling away. And I keep letting you, hoping this time it'll feel different. That it'll mean something." He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "I'm trying, Lena. I planned this night, I've been patient. I snapped. "You're silent. You walk around like I'm furniture. You don't ask me what I feel, or what I need. You just touch me like that's enough." He didn't say anything for a long beat. Then, calmly, "Are you saying you don't want to be touched?" I stared at him. "I'm saying I want to be seen." He sat back in his chair. "So now I'm the villain? You shut down every time I try to be close to you, and I'm the bad guy?" His voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp. Defensive. I looked away, tears burning my eyes. "No one's the bad guy," I whispered. "We're just, already over. And neither of us knows how to say it." The check came. He paid in silence. We didn't speak on the ride home. I cried in the bathroom after we got back. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep, not because of the dinner, not even because of the fight, but because something cracked open. Something that had been locked shut for too long. I looked in the mirror. My makeup was ruined. My dress felt like a costume. And for a second, I wanted to take it all back, the wine, the fight, the hurt in his eyes. He had only wanted to fix things. But I'd lashed out like a wounded animal. Because I didn't know how to explain that his version of love, touch without talk, closeness without curiosity, made me feel more alone than if he weren't there at all. I curled up on the bathroom floor, knees to chest, and whispered, "I don't even know who I am in this marriage anymore." And that's the truth. I didn't cheat because I stopped loving Nathan. I cheated because I stopped recognizing myself in the reflection of our life. And now? Now he won't even look at me. And somehow, that hurts more than if he had just screamed. More than if he had left. Because pretending I don't exist? That's a punishment I never saw coming. That it's been 17 days since the dinner. 17 days of silence that hums louder than any fight we've ever had. Nathan hasn't raised his voice. He hasn't slammed a door or cursed or cried. He just stopped. Stopped asking where I was going. Stopped kissing my forehead in the morning. Stopped touching me, in the kitchen, in bed, in passing. It's not angry silence. It's worse. It's emptiness. I watch him now the way I used to watch strangers in airports. Searching their faces for stories I'll never hear. He still makes coffee in the morning, just not for me. He still folds the laundry, just not mine. He still comes home from the station on time, but walks past me like I'm part of the wall. And I miss him. God, I miss him. But I don't know how to reach across this quiet. Not when I'm the reason it exists. He knows. I don't know how he found out, I never asked. Maybe it was a message I didn't delete, or a scent on the sheets I thought was gone. Maybe he just saw it in my eyes one night and didn't need proof. But he knows. And now he won't even give me the mercy of confrontation. Just silence. I watch him from the hallway sometimes, the way he sits on the couch, TV on but eyes far away. The way he rubs the back of his neck when he's thinking hard. The way he clutches his wedding ring between his thumb and forefinger, as if he's debating whether it still means anything. And I wonder, is he grieving me? Or the version of me he thought he knew? There's a dent in his sadness I hadn't noticed before. A heaviness that has nothing to do with rage, and everything to do with being gutted quietly. He looks tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. The kind you carry in your soul. And I feel it too. Some mornings, I catch myself standing outside the bedroom door, hand hovering just above the knob, aching to say something, anything, just to break the spell. But what do you say to someone whose trust you broke in the most intimate place you once shared? I cheated in our bed. Not in a hotel. Not in a car. Not even at a friend's house. Our bed. And I don't know if that's what broke him, or if it was already broken and that was just the final crack. I think about that night sometimes. Not with him, with the other man. I don't think about the sex. I think about what I was feeling, invisible. Hollow. Needing to feel something. And now I feel everything, guilt, regret, longing, all at once. But what I don't feel is anger. Not at him. Nathan isn't cruel. He's wounded. And he doesn't know how to hold me without hurting himself. I don't blame him. But I do wonder, is silence his way of protecting himself? Or punishing me? Last night, I passed him in the hallway. We didn't speak. Our arms brushed. I paused. He didn't. And I knew, in that breathless second, that he may never come back to me. So now I have to choose. Do I try again? Do I apologize again, even if he won't answer? Do I beg, cry, open my chest and say, I will rebuild this if you let me? Or do I walk away, not because I want to, but because maybe that's the only mercy left to offer us both? Tonight, I sat on the edge of our bed for an hour. I looked at the place where he used to sleep. And I whispered out loud, is love supposed to hurt this quietly? I found him on the couch again last night. It was almost midnight. The glow of the muted TV flickered over his face, but his eyes were closed. Not sleeping, just resting in that way people do when they've learned to live without comfort. I stood there for a while. I didn't want to wake him. I didn't want to leave either. So I sat on the edge of the couch cushion, near his feet. Careful, like I was trying not to break glass. My hands were shaking. Nathan, I said softly. His eyes opened. We looked at each other in the kind of silence that's heavy with unspoken history. The kind of silence that's older than the fight. I know you know, I said. My voice was quiet. And I know I don't deserve to ask you anything. But I need you to say something. Anything. He didn't sit up. Didn't yell. Just stared at me for a long time. Then, finally, he said, why? It wasn't angry. It was small. Like a wounded child. And I broke. I cried. Right there, at his feet. The kind of crying that strips you, ugly and raw and without control. I don't have a good answer, I said between sobs. I was lonely. I felt like I was fading. I wanted to feel something. And I didn't know how to ask you to see me again. He sat up slowly. I did see you, he said, eyes glassy. I just didn't know how far gone you already were. We both stared at the floor. I'm not asking you to forgive me, I whispered. I'm asking you to tell me if there's still something here, or if we've already buried it. He didn't answer with words. Instead, he reached out and pulled me into him, arms wrapped around me, my face buried in his chest, his chin resting lightly on the crown of my head. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't passionate. It was grieving. And it hurt more than yelling would've. We stayed like that for a while, two people who had once promised forever, now just trying to survive the night. Eventually, he whispered, I don't know if I can ever trust you again. I nodded into his shirt. I don't know if I can ever forgive myself. We didn't make any decisions that night. No promises. No resets. Just a quiet, broken kind of closeness. And maybe that's what healing looks like, when the wounds are still fresh, not a kiss, not a fix, but a silent hug in the middle of the night, when love hasn't left, but doesn't know how to stay either. You think the hardest part of betrayal is what happens the night they find out. It's not. The hardest part is what comes after, the slow, unraveling of silence, the daily ache of knowing you caused it, and the desperate wish to unmake what you did with one honest sentence that will never be enough. My name's Lena. I'm 34. And I cheated on my husband in our own bed. It still feels foreign coming out of my mouth, like I'm confessing to someone else's sin. But it was me. I made that choice. I crossed that line. And the truth is, it didn't feel like some reckless, passionate escape. It felt like suffocating while reaching for air in the wrong place. I wanted to feel desired again. Not just touched, seen. Held with intent, not routine. Loved not as a wife, or as the person he came home to, but as the person who still mattered. Who still had mystery. But I never said that out loud. I never told Nathan how lonely I had become, even while lying beside him every night. I wore that loneliness like perfume, quiet, invisible, but always lingering. And in return, he kept offering me his version of love, practical, present, physical. Touch without talk. Kisses instead of questions. I mistook his silence for neglect. He mistook my distance for moodiness. We were both wrong. And by the time I realized what I needed wasn't more, but deeper, I had already broken something we couldn't name, and maybe couldn't fix. When Nathan found out, he didn't scream. He didn't demand answers. He just stopped looking at me like I was real. He made me invisible. That kind of silence? It's devastating. People assume punishment always comes with shouting or slamming doors. But it can also come in the form of a husband who still takes out the trash, still fixes the faucet, still sleeps under the same roof, but won't meet your eyes when he says goodnight. And I get it now. That wasn't cruelty. That was grief. Because he didn't just lose trust. He lost home. We tried. For a while. Shared space, shared grief, even a hug once in the dark that felt like we were both holding a ghost. But you can't rebuild something if only one of you is still in it. So, no, he didn't stay. He moved out 6 weeks ago. No dramatic farewell. Just a quiet morning, 2 packed bags, and a goodbye that felt more like an exhale than a sentence. I stood in the hallway for a long time after he left, waiting to cry. But it didn't come. Not because I didn't love him, I did, in ways I never learned how to express. But because some endings don't deserve tears. Some endings just are. Like sunsets. Or seasons. And now? Now I'm learning how to sit with myself. Not to punish. To understand. I've learned that desire is not just about sex. It's about feeling known. It's about emotional risk. It's about the little moments, the way someone asks how your day really was, or remembers you hate olives, or laughs at your worst joke just to make you feel seen. I've learned that intimacy isn't a room you unlock with lust. It's a language, one that needs practice, patience, and fluency in your partner's needs. And I've learned that sometimes the people we hurt the most are the ones who quietly carry our weight without ever asking us to notice. So if you're listening to this and you're lonely in your relationship, say it. Don't wait until your silence becomes someone else's breaking point. And if you've been betrayed, I hope you know your quiet doesn't have to be cruel. But your healing is yours to protect. As for me, I still sleep on one side of the bed. I still make 2 cups of coffee out of habit. And I still love him. But I love him from afar now, in the way you love someone who taught you something too late. And that's the haunting thing about love, sometimes it doesn't end in hate. Sometimes it just ends.